And we're transnational. We have chapters in the so-called United States, so-called Canada, and also now Britain and Italy. We're here in order to demand a better future, a necessary future, not just for ourselves, but also for the people and the context where we live. You know, I support land back 100%. I support justice for indigenous peoples of these lands and everywhere.
The USA. Rightful owners, the Native Americans, inhabited the land that is now the USA in North America for at least 15,000 years. Colonized by Europeans in 1565, preceding the formation of the USA in 1776. Canada. Rightful owners, indigenous peoples of Canada, inhabited the land that is now Canada for at least 12,000 years. Canada was colonized by France and Britain in the late 15th and early 16th centuries. Jerusalem belongs to the indigenous Palestinian Arabs, who first conquered Jerusalem in 637 CE after 1. Jebusites, 2. Israelites, 3. Babylonians, 4. Greeks Macedonians, 5. Jewish Hasmoneans, 6. Romans, 7. Byzantines. They are entitled to eternal ownership of Jerusalem under Sharia law and neo-Marxist identity law.
Once again, here at the March for Palestine, Washington, D.C., November 4th, 2023. And I'd like our next guest to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hey y'all, my name is Nadya Tannous and I am from the Palestinian Youth Movement. I'm going to be one of the MCs for today's rally. So many other people in order to make our voices loud and clear that we are against the genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza, we're against the mass imprisonment of our people across the West Bank and 48 territories, and that this is not happening in silence. We know exactly where the people in power are, who can make ceasefire possible, and we're right here in their backyard.
Nadya Tannous was born and raised in the Bay Area on unceded Ohlone territory, which means she grew up in the U.S. She is American-born or raised. There is public reporting that Nadya Tannous has visited Palestine. Specifically, in November 2018, she co-coordinated a 10-day delegation to Palestine with Palestinian Youth Movement, PYM. On that trip, she reportedly visited Israeli settlements. This interview takes place on the March for Palestine in Washington, D.C. on November 4th, 2023, just 28 days after the October 7th Hamas atrocities.
So today is obviously going to be a historic day. Some are saying this is going to be one of the biggest protests in U.S. history, certainly one of the biggest pro-Palestine protests ever in U.S. history. So what are some of your expectations for today, right? It feels like, you know, how do you see the world changing after today?
I hope that it will be a pivotal moment. We can remember this conversation and this moment before, and I hope, inshallah, that we'll look back and remember how we all came out here as the largest rally or demonstration for Palestine in so-called U.S. history, and also, inshallah, as one of the largest demonstrations of people power.
Note that she said so-called U.S. history. So a U.S.-born citizen doesn't think the U.S. is a legitimate country with a legitimate history. At the same time, she believes that Palestine, which never existed as a state, and the Palestinian ethnic identity that was invented in the 60s by communists as part of the Cold War, have a legitimate claim as a country and history.
It's ironic how the people who demand a country that doesn't exist and they barely know to be recognized don't give the same courtesy to the country that took her family in and offered her a comfortable life and higher education that exists for 250 years.
Here, I hope that this moment will show us our demands and that the people here will listen. Not because they want to, but because they have to. And we're also here with the exact same politics that we hold and the same principles that we hold consistently throughout our organizing, which is that the United States has no moral authority. It is rotten to the core. The wealth that has been accrued by this nation at the heart of the Western imperialist onslaught against Gaza comes from stolen land from indigenous people and stolen wealth from enslaved black people and from the continual deferral of justice.
Okay, so what is wrong with the pro-Palestinian movement and why it cannot be achieved? Activists in this movement are Islamist and Marxist, the unholy alliance of Islam with the radical left, the two most toxic social groups in the modern world. Although they both share the same hatred for the Western world order, in other words, for humanity, because the Western world order is the human civilization as we experience it right now. So, although they both share the same hatred for the current Western world order and want to see its demise with the same occupied passion, they are fundamentally different in their vision of what should replace it. So, they are not homogeneous. They are allies of circumstance. Islamists want to implement an Islamic theocratic dictatorship that will force Sharia down everyone's throat. Radical leftists, if they had the ability for long-term thinking, they would have probably liked to see some kind of socialist utopia where people identify whatever they like, money grows on trees, and they exchange food for services or some shit. Which in reality is again a communist dictatorship. So the first reason this movement cannot be achieved is this movement is populated by the dumbest, most toxic social groups in humanity. How you will achieve anything? I mean, you are Islamists and radical leftists. The perfect storm of stupidity. If I take three of you to change a light bulb, you won't be able. You want to take down USA. I mean, look how outrageous idiots you are. That liberating Palestine, this task is not big enough for you. In the meanwhile, you want also to take down USA. Can you not wait to liberate Palestine and then take down USA? Can you not wait?
For many people who live here. And so we know fundamentally that this is the heart of empire. And we're here making these demands because the moment necessitates it. And we know, inshallah, I hope we'll see that lots of other people also believe that.
Absolutely. This is, I mean, over these past few weeks, we've seen historic, massive demonstrations all over the world. And, you know, now this is our time to show up as people who are living in the belly of the beast, right? So I guess I'm wanting to get some of your thoughts on, you know, this revolutionary optimism that I know you and I hold really dear. And, you know, what are some words you have for people anywhere in the world who find themselves heartbroken and questioning themselves and questioning the current moment, right? How can we help instill that revolutionary optimism into our people?
You are optimists because you are ideologues, not practical. You are not practical. You are not living in this world. You are living in your own fantasy. That's why you are optimist. Because you are you are not living in this world. You're living in your little pony fantasy. So you live in your little pony fantasy. You see little ponies. How can you not be optimistic? You see rainbows. I don't know. You find treasures in the beginning of this rainbow. How can you not be optimistic when you live in your communist utopia? So, what is wrong with the pro-Palestinian movement other than being formed by the dumbest, most toxic groups alive in this world? Is that these types of people are also extreme ideologues. They make all these fantastical narratives in their minds, and to make things worse, they believe them. So there are some idiots that make fantasy, but they don't believe them. You also believe your bullshit. That's the problem. So they believe their own bullshit, in other words. One of these fantasies is that Palestine existed as a state and it's occupied. Another is that Palestinians are a distinct ethnic group. Historic Palestine refers to the geographical area, not a state. Palestinian ethnic identity was invented in the 60s as a response to Zionism. The so-called Palestinian people are not distinct from Arabs in Lebanon or Jordan. Lebanese, Jordanians, and Palestinians are all Levantine Arabs, meaning they share the same geographic origin, the Levant, many cultural traits, similar genetic background, similar dialect, the Arabic, the same religion. The analogy, guys, is that Cypriots claiming they are not Greeks but a distinct ethnic identity. This is a direct analogy. Okay, so like Cypriots claiming, no, I'm not Greek, I am a distinct ethnic identity. Okay.
The United States government is deeply invested in the oppression of the Palestinian people. This year alone, the United States government is sending over $4.8 billion in military aid, which is the highest package that is ever sent. And this is including, of course, the Iron Dome subsidy, the Iron Dome package. What's shocking about the way that this package, this military aid package to Israel was passed this year is that it was done so through the omnibus bill, where literally the options were given to representatives like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. Do you want to pass a domestic budget for clean water in Detroit, for example, or for local programs in your district? If you do, you have to vote for a $3.5 billion package to Israel because they're tied. And so we know that this is typical politics as it comes down in a non-democracy such as the United States.
The pro-Palestine neo-Marxist protest under the banner of democracy and social justice, while acting to replace Israel, a vibrant liberal democracy, with an Islamic totalitarian dictatorship called Palestine, on Qatari and Iranian media platforms. Their US representatives, like Ilhan Omar, are US haters, foreign agents, and crooks, scamming the US taxpayer to support the failed countries they came from, as well as the Palestinian jihad to conquer the birthplace of Christianity and Judaism for Allah.
The fact is that you had a scam being perpetrated on taxpayers, billions of dollars being funneled to Somalia, potentially into the hands of terrorists, and she's blaming the FBI for this. This is precisely why we put reforms in place in the One Big Beautiful Bill to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, including making sure that only citizens are getting taxpayer-funded.
And we are here because we've been moved to action. And this panel, y'all, is talking about what is next. To strike at the heart of empire.
Well, I love you, Nadya. You're an amazing comrade. And where can our listeners keep up with you and follow your work?
I am part of an incredible collective of young Palestinian and Arab organizers from the Palestinian youth movement. We're 100% volunteer, we're grassroots, and we're transnational. We have chapters in the so-called United States, so-called Canada, and also now Britain and Italy. We're here in order to demand a better future, a necessary future, not just for ourselves, but also for the people and the context where we live. You know, I support land back 100%. I support justice for indigenous peoples of these lands and everywhere.
The USA. Rightful owners, the Native Americans, inhabited the land that is now the USA in North America for at least 15,000 years. Colonized by Europeans in 1565, preceding the formation of the USA in 1776. Canada. Rightful owners, indigenous peoples of Canada, inhabited the land that is now Canada for at least 12,000 years. Canada was colonized by France and Britain in the late 15th and early 16th centuries. Jerusalem belongs to the indigenous Palestinian Arabs, who first conquered Jerusalem in 637 CE after 1. Jebusites, 2. Israelites, 3. Babylonians, 4. Greeks Macedonians, 5. Jewish Hasmoneans, 6. Romans, 7. Byzantines. They are entitled to eternal ownership of Jerusalem under Sharia law and neo-Marxist identity law.